Hello there, gang, and welcome to another episode of Displaying-Model-Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest video podcast. So take off your pants, crack a beer, and let's talk toys. Let's talk about the Dark Phoenix Saga. It's as told by toys, and it's coming up right now. This is one of the big ones that a lot of people have been asking for, and I've been a little bit intimidated to get into it because it's a big old story. So I'm going to try and condense it down as much as possible, and we're going to talk about the characters, the action figures, and all the highs and low points in between. So let's do it. This series goes back to the 80s when different things were acceptable, such as a 10-issue storyline with no other fill-in issues or one-shots or alphas or omegas. Remember the good old days when huge big mega events were just contained within their books? It was a halcyon time. I'll take you back there. It all started in January 1980 and it ran till October. So like I said, this was a whopper. Written by Chris Claremont and penciled by John Byrne. It's kind of set the standard for big X-Men mega events. Now, what some folks might not know, myself included, was that this is not the story where Jean gets the Phoenix powers. This actually occurred back in X-Men 101 to 108. You can see me glance down at the notes there. This is a storyline all set in space, and there's the Macron crystal, which I only really know from the Age of Apocalypse, but they have to go and repair that, and it's during this adventure that Jean picks up these cosmic powers. So during that story, which actually took place way back in 1977, so you see they were laying the groundwork like 3 years before this kicked off. The X-Men are returning from space, and kind of like the Fantastic Four, they got hit by cosmic rays, and their fortunes changed forever in pretty horrific ways, actually. We'll get to that later. But Phoenix, well, Jean at the time, she gets blasted by this cosmic radiation, which kind of supercharges her telepathic abilities. I was going to say her telepathic and telepathy abilities. Those are the same thing. And she actually just becomes this being of pure cosmic telepathic light and energy. And then Dr. Manhattan style, she reforms herself back on Earth. She gives herself the classic green Phoenix costume, and she uses her incredible telepathic and telekinetic abilities to repair the Macron crystal. And then, being the sensible person that she is, she kind of nerfs herself. She voluntarily restrains her level of telepathic and telekinetic powers so that she doesn't go full Dr. Manhattan. And speaking of Jean Grey in her green Phoenix costume, we have just had revealed from the good brothers at Mafex a brand new Jean Grey Green Phoenix, and holy moly, she looks nice. She looks good. One thing that we haven't seen are what kind of effects she might come with. Hopefully she'll have some lovely big fiery Phoenix effects. We don't know yet. But just looking at the basic images that we've had previewed so far, they look decent. The different face sculpts, you've got kind of, you got plain and sort of regular and angry, but there's not one that's like really terrifying. I want to see like a power radiating kind of face, but maybe they're saving that for when they inevitably do the red Dark Phoenix repaint. Time will tell on that one. But also we can jump on over to our good old beloved Marvel Legends, because they've given us a few Phoenixes in our time as well. We just recently, was it the Bonebreaker wave? I think it was the Bonebreaker wave. Stop me if I'm wrong. We got Dark Phoenix. I'll get to her later. But we have had green costume Jean Grey as well. So all of this new telepathic energy, this cosmic power radiating off of Jean Grey, brings her to the attention of Mastermind, a classic X-Men villain who is trying to prove himself, earn his stripes, so that he can become a member of the vaunted Hellfire Club. And we do have a Mastermind figure, kind of, sort of. Yes, it's in the Wolverine 5-pack. This came out just over a year ago, and it was a real mixed bag of figures, like literally a mixed bag of figures. You had shirtless, battle-damaged Wolverine. You had a very underwhelming looking Cyber, in my opinion. You had a redone Omega Red, who was actually kind of nice. I liked him. We also added to our Morlock set with Dagger eye patch Morlock lady. I'm sorry, the name escapes me. And then we had Mastermind as well. But he's decked out in his Hellfire Club gear. And this is kind of interesting because why is he in Hellfire Club gear? Isn't he normally wearing like a trench coat and something like that? Yes, he is, but he casts a little illusion over Jean Grey. Sort of telepathically, he goes into her mind and creates this sort of mental illusion backstory dream that he kind of traps her in, where he is this tough and rugged looking Jason Wingard, which is why the action figure comes with a completely different Jason Wingard head, who has thick flowing hair and big bushy mutton chops, and he just looks like he's from the cover of a romance novel. And he attempts to seduce Jean Grey inside this mental dream world that he's established. And that's something the action figure kind of leans more towards than the classic Mastermind, because classic Mastermind in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, he's got this long trench coat. He looks like a bit of a diddler, like very sleazy. You'd expect to see this guy sneaking out of a porno theater with his trench coat huddled around him. That's the whole look of the character, and a lot of people have kit bashed a trench coat onto him to kind of make it look more like classic Brotherhood of Evil Mutants Mastermind. But wearing the Hellfire Club type robes, that's more your Jason Wingard look. But it does look good. It's a nice figure. Shame you gotta buy a whole 5-pack to get him. And this is where the Hellfire Club are kind of really introduced and established. And it's kind of funny, I remember a panel where Cyclops is explaining, what these Hellfire guys are to Warren Worthington, Angel. And he's like, oh yeah, the Hellfire Club. Yeah, I'm a member of that. Which is kind of a cool little wrinkle that I didn't realize. Because it's this cabal of the super rich, super elite people and mutants, Warren Worthington actually just inherited a membership from his father. Kind of like Grandpa in The Simpsons, where he's like, I am a Mason, a member of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance for some reason, and there it is, a stonecutter. So yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I know the Hellfire Club. They're fairly innocuous, aren't they? No, Warren, they're not. Now, Mastermind isn't actually that powerful. He shouldn't be able to fully just infiltrate Jean Grey's mind. However, he's got a sneaky little mind tap device to amplify his powers, courtesy of the White Queen, Emma Frost. And we got a few nice Emma Frost figures as well. First of all, we got the entire Hellfire Club box set. I mean, that whole box set is gorgeous and fantastic. It really, really is. Although it was also the thing that made me kind of give up on collecting completionist type X-Men sets. Because I was like, am I really going to spend over $100, about $150 on the secondhand market to get this set? Do I really care about any of these characters? Not really. You know what? I won't bother. But that's not to say that the Emma Frost that comes in this set doesn't look really good, because it does. And also, double thumbs up to Hasbro for doing a slightly risque kind of female costume. I mean, she's literally just standing there in her underpants and a little gown cape type thing. You know what? It looks the bomb. So I got no problem with that. Like, well done for sticking with the comic accuracy. That's really cool. And also, we've got a new White Queen as well, or a new Emma Frost, although she's actually much more X-Men sort of looking, so that's not really the Hellfire look. The Hellfire look was captured perfectly in the box set. That's the one you need to go for. I mean, why am I telling you this? The box set's literally called the Hellfire Club box set. I'm just trying to be thorough. So these illusions caused by Mastermind make Jean Grey believe that she is the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club. He makes her think that there was an ancestor of hers, Lady Grey, who had this romantic affair with an ancestor of Jason Wingard. It's all actually, like, it's real creepy when you really think about what Mastermind is doing with Jean Grey and her mind. Like, it's proper villainous, nasty stuff, and like he gets what's coming to him. So that's good, because it's pretty dark the way that he goes about doing this, even though it's presented in a very comic booky kind of fashion. So because Jean also has this Phoenix kind of corruption going on with her as well that she doesn't understand, she starts to lean into this. She's much more susceptible to it. And as Jason Wingard, or Mastermind, shows her the power and the decadence that she can enjoy as the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, she begins to mentally accept it until she believes that this is who she is. And the Phoenix is in hog dog heaven, because inside her, it's just absorbing all of this decadence and all of this kind of emotion and fun energy that it's just feeding off of, so it makes Jean so susceptible to fall for this illusion. Problem is though, the deeper that she goes into this mental role, the more she relaxes the psychic barriers that she had put up to control the Phoenix. And all the while, the Phoenix is feeding off of all of this telepathic energy that it's receiving. So it's this perfect storm of just trouble, basically. And trouble's what's a-coming. So since Jean has become the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, she is decked out and adorned in all the regal finery that you would expect her to wear, and it's it's quite a sight. And again, Marvel Legends captured it fantastically in the Hellfire Club box set. That's absolutely beautifully put together, wonderfully realized from comic page to action figure. Dang, the more I talk about it, it is a really good box set. And of course, then we get introduced to the other members of the Hellfire Club as well. We don't have all of them, but we've got Sebastian Shaw, who's the main head honcho. And he's just, again, great big mutton chops. And I love the fact that we did actually get him portrayed in X-Men First Class by the Baconator himself, Kevin Bacon. It's a shame that they didn't lean more into the regal Hellfire Club kind of look in that movie, but nonetheless, Kevin Bacon's a boss, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, Shaw is the man who's kind of running the whole operation. His Marvel Legend looks the business. It's a good set. Alright, as you can see, I'm filming this as a bit of an extra cutaway because can you Adam and Eve it? I forgot to talk about Donald Pierce. Donald Pierce, the head of the Reavers. He just has a name that makes you think like, this dude's probably up to no good. I don't know why, but the name Donald Pierce, I just think, yeah, this dude's on the side of the bad guys. And he is another member of the Hellfire Club, this time with all these different cybernetic implants and augmentations. I don't know why I'm telling you this, guys. You're not watching this unless you're a hardcore comic book fan anyway. The Reavers, a whole pack of cybernetically augmented Wolverine villains. And Donald Pierce, he's like the Hellfire Club kind of highfalutin member. And he gets his nice little looking action figure to go with it, with the Hellfire Club box set. And the same thing can be said for all of the figures, all of the male figures. Their ruffles and kerfuffles that they wear, they look great. They really were sculpted to perfection. This is such a great chef's kiss of a box set. So much love, care, and attention went into this thing. And Donald Pierce, he gets that treatment as well. Not a huge amount of accessories, but you got a few little things that just hint towards his cyborgy kind of components and stuff. He doesn't do a huge amount in this story, but he's another one of the villainous Hellfire Club. And he does have a fun throwdown with Colossus. If I recall correctly, I think we have a cool moment where Colossus like breaks his cyborg arm in half and stuff, and you realize like, oof, Colossus ain't taking no prisoners. That's pretty cool, and the action figure is also pretty cool. So while the X-Men are battling the Hellfire Club, we're introduced to the Hellfire Knights, who are basically their heavy artillery, their hired goons who are wearing the battle armor. And I'm surprised that we haven't got these as either builder figures or deluxe releases, because they're kind of fun. They've got a bit of an Ironmonger or Kree Sentry kind of look to them, and it's cool that when they rip the helmets off, you see that it's just the Hellfire goon inside. So you could do a fun head swap where you take the robot head off, and you just pop the little Hellfire goon head in there. I'm spitballing an action figure that doesn't actually exist, but it should do, because I think they'd be kind of fun. And speaking of the Hellfire goons, oh yeah, we get plenty of those in this story, and we've got plenty of those in some people's collections. But other people's collections don't have plenty of them, because they can be a little bit hard to come by. They were sold as army builders, which is always a good thing. But the problem with army builders is people army build with them, and it can make them quite hard to find, because folks will buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 of them to make a huge big diorama display. But I get why they would do them, because when you make a whole pile of them stacked up with Wolverine just slashing his way through, that's great fun to see. So I get it. I get why you do that, but come on, Hasbro, just make them more readily available. And speaking of Wolverine slashing his way through, this is where we get the classic classic image of Wolverine battling his way back through the sewers up into the mansion and just really just ripping through these guys like they're paper. Even doing the classic Dirty Harry speech of, "Yeah, these claws are adamantium, bub. Sharpest metal in the world. Do you feel lucky?" That's a fun little Clint Eastwood homage type moment from Wolverine that I always thought was kind of cool. The X-Men battling the Hellfire Club, it's a fun story where they kind of get their butts whooped until they make their big comeback led by Wolverine battling from underneath. It's a good setup and a good story and just good quality, wholesome X-Men action. That's what I like to see. Not any of this Hoxpox Krakoa nonsense. Good old-fashioned X-Men. So as the Black Queen, Jean Grey helps the Hellfire Club capture the X-Men, and I'm not sure if I'd want to be captured by the Hellfire Club, because they strip them down to their skivvies and throw them in cages, and it's like, this is all a little bit S&M-y, isn't it, guys? What exactly are you going for here? And Cyclops is having none of it. Because heaven forbid anyone cucks Cyclops. Yeah, that's not going to happen again in the future. So he actually has a mental psychic duel with Mastermind. It's very, again, going for the old romance novels, it's very swashbuckling on the deck of a pirate ship and they're battling each other. But Scott, he's kind of a blunt object more than a precision tool. He's not really at home in the psychic realm. So Mastermind kills the psychic image of Scott Summers. Scott's actually alright, don't worry, it's just psychically he gets 86'd, but unfortunately Jean Grey doesn't like that, nor does the Black Queen or Lady Grey or the Phoenix, and that just causes her to have kind of this psychic, emotional waves crashing breakdown, and the Phoenix is fully released, and she becomes, well, the Phoenix. Kind of wish I hadn't said Phoenix so many times in the previous sentence. It kind of killed the big reveal of the Dark Phoenix, but she becomes the Dark Phoenix. And Wolverine also gets revenge on Leyland. Is it Harry Leyland? I forget, and I'm trying to keep the flow of consciousness going here. Regardless, he's the big tubby member of the Hellfire Club who sent Wolverine crashing through all those floors into the sewer to start with. And this guy, he's the one piece that's missing from the whole Hellfire Club set. It would be great if we finally got him probably thrown into another box set that he likely would have nothing to do with. It's going to be like, hey, here's an Avengers box set with Harry Leyland from the Hellfire Club for no particular reason. Just, I don't know, call me a cynic. Regardless, I think they just didn't do him because he is, bigger and chunkier. He'd probably need a new sculpt all of his own, and they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. But you kind of do need him to fully fill out and represent this story correctly. Who knows? Maybe one day. We'll see. So the first order of business for Jean Grey is to get even with Mastermind, and she does that in a fun kind of like, you want some power? Well, here you go, you schmuck. And she makes him think that he has the powers of a god. She gives him like this all-seeing ability, just basically breaks his brain and leaves him in this comatose, smirking, drooling state. And she's like, well, that's what you get. F around and find out. Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. So in order to kind of break away from the X-Men entirely, Dark Phoenix just lays them all out. Luckily, she doesn't really hurt them badly, but she's like, I got no interest in you. Poof! There you go. You're all down for the count. I'm going to go off into space. See you later. Unfortunately, it does turn out that the Phoenix has a limit to her powers, at least in this state. So by the time she gets into the deep cosmos, she's like, man, I'm famished. I need to replenish some energy. What am I going to do? Hey, there's a star right there just waiting for me to devour it. So she does. Unfortunately, in devouring that star, she makes it go supernova and it wipes out a fully populated planet that was within its blast zone, basically. So yeah, that's always going to be a big caveat to the Jean Grey Phoenix character. She kind of sort of wiped out an entire population. That's, well, not even a population, an entire planet. I mean, granted, she did it inadvertently, she didn't mean to, but that's something that there's always going to be a reference to whenever the Phoenix and the Phoenix Force is brought up. It's like, yeah, maybe it could be used for good, but also it can destroy entire planets, and has done. And that's something Jean Grey also kind of bears the weight of guilt with as well. Although also I like the fact that the comics have established, like, she doesn't let the guilt weigh on her too much because it wasn't really her doing. She was just the car that the Phoenix was driving while it did that. So since we've been discussing Dark Phoenix for a while, we should really talk about the action figure. And again, there's a couple. There's an old Legends one, but there's one that also just came out, as I did mention, from, I want to say, was it the Controller Wave? Nah, it was Bonebreaker Wave, wasn't it? No, it definitely was. I'm sticking with that as my final answer. And she's a good-looking Marvel Legend. She's nothing crazy to write home about. She's got a nice little Phoenix fiery effect that you can put along her arm, but really, come on, if you want the Phoenix, you want to have a huge, big, awesome-looking fiery effect, and she doesn't really have that. That would have been a real nice touch. And there is one Marvel Select figure that has an incredible Phoenix stand. This is a Jean Grey from an alternate timeline in the future. I haven't read that story fully, so I don't want to comment on it too much, but just the figure itself looks beautiful. But then you have this big fiery Phoenix stand. That is just mwah. You put that with your Marvel Legends Dark Phoenix, now you got a Dark Phoenix. Now you got one to really be proud of. Nonetheless, though, the one that we currently have is decent. It's good enough. And for this story, we can carry on. So the Dark Phoenix wiping out this planet does bring her to the attention of the Shi'ar. She actually destroys one of their ships while she's out there as well. So Lilandra, is she the Queen? Empress? She's the big muckety-muck of the Shi'ar. She's like, yeah, the Dark Phoenix has got to go. This, we can't, we're not okay with this. We're not okay. And we don't have a complete Lilandra figure yet. We got a head. That's it. Marvel Legends Mystique came with a Lilandra head, but we don't have a body for her yet. People can kit bash the head onto various bodies. Silver Sable works as a good Lilandra body, so does Jocasta. But we're still waiting for a proper, full, regal Lilandra, which hopefully we will be getting if there are some rumors and scuttlebutt to be believed. In the meantime, though, we don't actually have a figure to represent this character. So an intergalactic council is called in order to decide what are we going to do about this Dark Phoenix. And the Kree are there, the Skrull are there, and those two sides don't get along. So that's kind of showing how important and all-consuming, literally, this problem could be. So much so that they do even reference that, like, yeah, this is more worrying than Galactus, because Galactus, he only feeds when he must, and he'll kind of make efforts to sort of do it in a good way, whereas the Phoenix is just a ball of passion and force and energy that's just going to do whatever it wants. And yeah, that's going to cause you a bit of worry. So the Dark Phoenix returns to Earth and confronts the X-Men, and it goes exactly how you would expect. Dark Phoenix just kind of has her way with them, eats their lunch, as the kids say. I don't know what that expression really means, but it always kind of tickles me. So yeah, the X-Men get absolutely wiped out once again by the Dark Phoenix. However, Charles Xavier, he manages to step up and have a psychic telepathic confrontation, and it's cool to see the extent of Charles Xavier's, it's a difficult word to pluralize, Charles Xavier's. Yeah, you don't say Xavier's, it's just say Xavier's. Why am I having this conversation with you here? It doesn't matter. You see the extent of Charles Xavier's power. There you go. Which is great to see, because so often I feel like Xavier is kind of portrayed as just the person who gets nerfed right at the start of a big story so that he can't do anything helpful. So this time he actually uses his ability to kind of shut down and put some barriers in place to block out and guard Jean's mind from the Phoenix. And it works. And we get classic, normal, sound mind Jean Grey back. The Phoenix is under control, trapped inside her, and she's like, whew, wow, so, I kind of blacked out there for a minute. What happened? Unfortunately, there ain't no rest for the wicked, as the Shi'ar come down to Earth and they're like, yo, that redhead there, she kind of committed a bit of casual genocide, so we gotta talk about this. So the X-Men all get beamed up to space. Well, not beamed, this ain't Star Trek. Could be, though. So the Shi'ar and the assorted council of planets and races say that, yo, Jean Grey, you might not have been directly responsible yourself personally, but you're harboring this power. It's gonna come out eventually. I'm afraid we're gonna have to kill you. And honestly, me being the lawful good person that I am, I gotta stand back and go, honestly, I get it. I get it. She did kind of wipe out an entire planet, even if it wasn't her fault. Sometimes it's all about the greater good. However, the X-Men aren't going to take this lying down, and Charles Xavier, he knows a few little legal loopholes, and he tells Lilandra, how about we have ourselves a little contest of champions? No, not that one. It's a battle for deciding what happens. There's an actual name for it. I don't remember what it is. But essentially, Lilandra is honor bound to accept this. And the rest of the Council of Planets and people are like, yeah, okay, let's just put it down to a good old scrap. So the next day, the Shi'ar Imperial Guard and the X-Men are teleported to the moon, where they're going to have this huge big battle royale showdown. And we do have one member of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, or actually two now that we've got Fang. He's Imperial Guard, isn't he? Stop me if I'm wrong. I'm going to talk about him anyway. But the other member of the Imperial Guard I want to talk about is Gladiator. Gladiator is one of my favorite looks of a character. So big, bright, bold, chunky, chonky with a cape and a giant mohawk as well. What's not to like about this guy? And I love that his power is essentially based on confidence. And he's so arrogant and full of himself and completely unwavering in his belief that he is the strongest being in the galaxy, that he is incredibly powerful because of that. It's a chicken and the egg kind of thing, which is really great. One of my favorite comic books is a Christmas time story where he has a fight with Cannonball from the X-Men, who should be obliterated by Gladiator, but because of his force field, he's able to protect himself from one of his most powerful blows. And when Gladiator sees that he couldn't put a scratch on him, he loses all his power because his confidence just plummets through the floor. It's really quite cool. Anyway, that's not the story we're talking about, but I did cover it in As Told by Toys years ago, so go back into the archives for that. But yes, in this whole huge big fight, oh yeah, Fang as well. I can't remember if Fang's here or not, and I've literally just read the issues. But Fang recently came out as a member of another wave, which was the Chod Wave. That was the one. Don't own the figure, but what can I say? He looks fine. That's all I can really tell you about that one. But the X-Men, they don't fare too well. This is a whole big saga about the X-Men getting beaten up. So yeah, the Imperial Guard, they pretty much take them out one by one until eventually Cyclops himself appears to have been killed. And that's not good when the last person standing is Jean Grey and she sees that the love of her life has been murdered right before her eyes. Nah! All of a sudden her psychic barriers come down and the Dark Phoenix is released. And holy potatoes, it's a bit of a brown trousers time for everyone involved. And this is where Lilandra is like, don't worry folks, I thought this might happen, I've got a backup plan. And I'm sure everyone around her was saying, oh thank goodness for that, I thought something terrible was going to happen. What's your backup plan? I'm going to destroy the entire solar system just to be safe. What? Luckily, before Lilandra can do that, the X-Men manage to kind of subdue the Dark Phoenix and calm her down, and she returns to good old classic, safe Jean Grey. So, as we're here on the moon with Cyclops, Jean Grey and the rest of the X-Men to make their final stand, we can talk about one of the most coveted 2-packs in all of Marvel Legends, which is the Cyclops and Dark Phoenix 2-pack. Oh my god! This thing goes for a pretty penny. A Toys R Us exclusive? If I can remember, this Jean Grey, this is pretty much the same one that was then re-released later, but this one looks so much better. She's got a darker color scheme, whereas the new one is more matte, and more importantly, she's got these different heads that have translucent, fiery, flaming phoenix hair. It looks so cool. And then you've got Cyclops in his classic old 1980s bodysuit head covering type thing. It's a bit of a dorky look, to be honest, but it's classic Cyclops and we haven't had it since. So that's worth a lot of money. If you have that set together, oof, boy, you're talking a couple of $100 probably. Maybe it's gone down in price slightly since we got a new Dark Phoenix, but I think it's still in pretty high demand. If you can't get the Marvel Legends version of that Cyclops, there actually is a Mezco version that they did, which is really nice and very comic accurate, I gotta say. A lot of folks don't like Mezco because they don't like the material, the arguably kind of the sock kind of material that they're wearing. Me personally, I love it. And even that Cyclops, I think, would rate pretty highly on the Sock It To Me scale, but nonetheless, I think he looks pretty cool. If you want to recreate that look, that's a good one to go for. It's really quite sweet and a little bit heartbreaking that in the build-up and the preparation for this big battle on the moon, Jean Grey puts on her old Marvel Girl costume, her classic X-Men costume. Not the yellow and blue classic, but still, this is old. This is like the good old days. This is the costume from a more innocent time, and that's kind of lovely. And you can just have this feeling of like, they know they're going to their doom. They know they're not going to get out of this. And like, even if they were to somehow magically win, they still have this huge problem that it's not going to end well. And there's a kind of heartbreaking tragedy that I just really love. I think this is X-Men comics written so well. It's Shakespearean levels of tragic heroes, and I really dig that. And this Marvel Girl costume, again, we've had some action figure representation from the X-Men House of X wave. We have Jean Grey in her Marvel Girl costume, and this is the modern Jean Grey wearing this costume. She kind of brings it back. But still, if you want to recreate this look of Cyclops with Jean Grey in this style, this is a pretty good one to go for. It's not like classic Dark Phoenix era, but it also pretty much is. That's what she's going for. So Jean Grey is brought back to her senses and sees that Cyclops actually is not dead. He's back up, he's on his feet, he's okay! And in seeing that, she completely regains control of herself and her senses. Once again, the Dark Phoenix is suppressed back down. She's Jean. She's okay. And this is where we get the most emotional gut punch of the story, where she leads Cyclops into this cave in the blue area of the moon to go and seek refuge. But inside the cave is this Kree super weapon, basically. And Jean's like, we're not here for refuge. This has got to be it. This is the end. And look, I'm getting goosebumps, man. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, because that's where Cyclops realizes that Jean had no intention of surviving this fight. She knew that she was going to end it here, and that's why she brought Cyclops to this cave where this weapon was, because she's like, you gotta do it. You gotta put me out of my misery. And that's it. She gives him that final kiss goodbye, says I love you, and then gets obliterated into dust. And that's the end of Jean Grey and the Dark Phoenix. For now. And the story ends with Uatu, the Watcher, stating that Jean Grey could have lived to become a god, but it was more important to her that she die as a human. Oh, again with the goosebumps. There's just, man, comic books are beautiful and amazing when they have the chance to be, and this is just, oh, Chris Claremont, just golden age X-Men, man, it gets you. It really gets you. What an incredible story this was. The Dark Phoenix saga, absolutely amazing. So when the X-Men return to Earth, they lay to rest the symbol of Jean Grey, I suppose, because there isn't really anything to bury as such. So they lay her to rest in their memorial grounds, and Cyclops kind of understandably decides that, you know what, I need some time away from the team. I need to go and find myself and process this and just get some separation from the X-Men. So this is a story that has some serious long-running repercussions, because this is just the start of Jean Grey's tale. Of course she comes back because she's a phoenix. And that's what phoenixes do. But that's a story for another time. And maybe I'll tell it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this. What do you think about the Dark Phoenix saga? What do you think about the follow-ups and where it goes from here? Comment below, let me know. And guys, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, then you know what you gotta do. You gotta join the 6-1 clicks by clicking the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And if you want to really help support the channel, you can do over at patreon.com/displaying-model-behaviour. If you sign up there, you can shoot me a message and ask me to do a story for As Told by Toys. And that's exactly what I'll do, because we're not going to run out of tales anytime soon. Gang, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
Oh, yeah. Coffee. Big time